Welcome back to my channel. Today's discussion will be about Series 12. Series 12 continued the same thing as Series 11 before it, as not having a theme. I think Series 12, very much like Series 11, has many iconic characters that are well known outside of their series. That's just my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into Series 12. Series 12 was released in the fall of 2006. So in discussing the dolls, I don't really have a set order, but I will leave the MVD, the most valuable doll, last in the discussion because there's a lot of information to discuss and I don't want to interrupt the flow with that lengthy discussion of that particular doll. So we're going to start with Chloe. Now, Chloe is an adorable doll, and she is very unique for a couple of things. In her series, she's the only one with the death date that actually coincides with the same year of release. Not many dolls within a series does that, or has that, excuse me. Her chipboard is the first chipboard to be written in the first person. So poor Chloe was buried alive, and in her chipboard, which is very haunting, she is very aware of it happening to her, which makes her one of the most saddest characters in LDD, in the LDD series 1 through 35. Her death certificate also continues that first person perspective. It's done in the third person, and then it interjects Chloe's thoughts in the death certificate. Again, it's very unique to her. I don't believe no other doll has had that. Now, she is styled in a way that has nothing to do with her year. So I honestly don't know how you would describe this style, but it's a really cute dress. The dress is of a felt material. She has this velvet red bow that is stitched onto the dress. It's not glued on, so it won't fall off. She has these thick red and black tights. She has the typical Mary Jane shoes. And the thing that's very haunting about Chloe is her eyes. So she has these black lines drawn all around her eyes. She has it on her lips. And if you could see it, she has red outline within her eye socket. Really, really, really cool doll. Her hair is not the best. It has a little bit of that greasy feel that a lot of the older dolls have. It's not terribly rooted, but you do see a little bit of balding. Now, what's interesting about Chloe's death date is that, unlike the other four in the series, hers was a little hard to pinpoint exactly what it was in relation to. So I did find two notable events that happened on her death date. So the first was a terrible plane crash. It was the Armavia Flight 967, which crashed into the Black Sea and had no survivors. So very much like Chloe, they were, in a way buried alive within this crash. They were stuck in the plane, going into the water. So I thought maybe that was one inspiration. And the second one was of the death of a Dutch painter named Karel Appel. And he painted this painting called Verregende Kinderen, which means children questioning. Here's a picture of it. Now, I circled in particular a part of the painting. Now, if you notice the red and black, especially the lines, it looks very similar to the lines painted on Chloe's eyes. Not sure if any one of the guys had knowledge of this painter, but if you also notice in the painting, like you see these bold colors, and yet the eyes of the figures, which are children in the painting, they're very sad, and again, they look haunted, very much like Chloe. And I just thought it was interesting of these two events that, you know, both dealt with sad subject matter. The painting was post-World War II. The topic was German children during that time. So, you know, maybe it's one of those 2 dates, or maybe it's not. I haven't seen any research saying otherwise. Now, she goes for quite a lot of money in recent years. In my research, she can start at $200, and she was sold for as high as $350, sealed in coffin. So, again, just keep that in mind. Prices fluctuate, and also the price is dependent on the condition of the doll. I bought my Chloe for $78. She was open, and she has no accessories. She's the only doll in the series that doesn't have accessories, and that is Chloe. Okay, next we're going to talk about Tessa. Now, Tessa's another interesting doll in that she had a couple of deviations from her prototype. So, in her prototype picture, which you can find on Mezco.com, she doesn't have her knife, which you see a knife in her hand. The prototype picture didn't show that she came with an accessory. And she came with socks. And for some reason, when she came out, her doll did not have socks, which is a little annoying. And it looks bad, you know, with the dress. And I think they made her have like white tights because her legs are white. They're very pale in comparison to her face. And another thing about Tessa that in the prototype they didn't even bother hiding is that her hair is awful. Like, she has the worst hair in this series, which is quite surprising because this series is pretty solid, and I was just very surprised with how horrible her hair is. And I bought her new, sealed in coffin. So they attempted to give her the same pin curls as Jubilee in the previous series, but it's like they gave up or forgot how to do it. I don't get it. And she has bad rooting as well. I mean, it just, look at that. Kind of reminiscent of Series 10. And it's curious that she was given a knife, considering her cause of death was someone gouged her eyes out for being a tattletale, a gossip. So why would you give her a knife? She didn't do it to herself. Someone did it to her. I just thought it was really curious. Her dress is cute. She is one of the few dolls that actually has snapped buttons instead of Velcro. Which is a cute touch. Again, I wish she had socks. I've been wanting to get her socks, but it's very hard to find socks in LDD scale. So I always was thinking of taking them from OG Posy, since OG Posy always, well, ever since the OG doll is always barefoot. So you wouldn't see it missing from her. Still debating to do that or not. And like I said, she comes with a knife that does fit nicely in her pegged hole in her hand. And her death date is the same as Emily Dickinson, a famous poet. Now, coincidentally, Emily Dickinson, she suffered from some eye ailment, and she feared going blind. So I thought that was a little clever to, have that associated with Tessa. And her chipboard is the only chipboard of Series 12 that her character has eyes in the skull. So all the dolls have just skulls, and she actually has eyes in her, so it makes her chipboard extra creepy. Which her resurrection does revisit that. So I can't wait to talk about her resurrection when I get to her series. She is not sought after. She's very inexpensive. I paid $42 for her, and she goes for $50 to $60. And that's it for Tessa. Next is Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel is one of my favorite boy dolls. I just love his 50s aesthetic. He's really cute. His death date is the same date as the year and day Dennis the Menace, the comic, was printed in a newspaper. Another thing about Ezekiel that his prototype photo did not show is that he comes with this cool accessory, which is an evil warthog or an evil boar, and it has like these little wheels. His chipboard mentions the pull toy, which I was surprised he actually came with one, because in the past they have mentioned things within either the chip or the death certificate, like for example Cracked Jack. They mentioned that he, like, what prize does he come with, and disappointingly he didn't come with anything. So like I said, it was a very delightful surprise that Ezekiel had this accessory. And the way I have it attached to him is I make a little loop, and he just wears it on his wrist. Okay. Now the toy doesn't spin the wheels, so they're stationary. So if you're searching for him, definitely make sure he comes with this accessory. He also has this adorable propeller on his hat, and his hat itself is a very easily breakable plastic, and it is flocked, so it has some texture to it. And a lot of times with Ezekiel, if you buy him loose, sometimes he is missing this propeller. And another thing to note about Ezekiel, if you do buy him mint in coffin, sometimes the propeller comes off in the coffin, just to let you know. And it's a known flaw of this doll. So if you do buy it from someone, please keep that in mind. It is not the seller's fault, especially if it's sealed in coffin. But if it's loose, make sure you see all the pictures and see that is still attached to his head. And like I said, he has this adorable outfit. And like Tessa, he also doesn't command a great deal of money. He's the cheapest in all of the dolls of Series 12. I got him for $36 sealed. He goes from $30 to $45. Okay, here's a close-up of his face. And he's cute. He's a bald boy, so I'm not gonna remove the hat. There's no hair. But again, he's a really cool doll. I think he's adorable. And again, the pull toy is a scream. And so I highly recommend including him in your collection, and make sure it is included. And that is Ezekiel. Before I move on to the next doll, I forgot to mention about Tessa. She's the first character to have her eyes gouged. So they do repeat this mold with Isabella from series 16 and with Sospere from series 25. Just want to show an up close of that. I totally forgot about that. All right. So next up is Cuddles. Cuddles is one of those dolls that her picture doesn't do her justice. She is so cute in person. She comes with this machete. Now, Cuddles, I believe, is the first doll to have a cupped hand. So her machete doesn't go into a hole, even though Cuddles does have a hole in her hand. But her machete doesn't have a peg attached, so it goes right in her hand. Okay, there it goes in her hand. It has it looks like a wooden handle. It's bloody on the blade. Real cute. And the thing about Cuddles in series 12, she has amazing hair. Like, look at this hair. It's like a Pantene commercial. It's so soft and it's so silky smooth. Like, just a gorgeous clown girl. Now, Cuddles also has a distinction in having a relationship. You know, Living Dead Dolls has a lot of in-doll lore. And she, surprisingly enough, or I should say unsurprisingly, is the girlfriend of Schizo. Now, Cuddles, unlike Schizo, who, as I discussed before in his series video, she actually has the death date of the killer clown that inspired Schizo's design, John Wayne Gacy, which I thought was so curious that she got that as her death date and he didn't. But that's her death date. She unfortunately was killed by her boyfriend, so very toxic relationship. Now the curious thing is, Schizo died 20 years prior to her death, so I don't know how that happened. Not the first time you had duos in Living Dead Dolls that had different death dates. Like, for example, the Great Zombini and his assistant Viv, he died before she did, and he was responsible for killing her. Doesn't make any sense. She has this adorable outfit. Very unique. She has this black bodysuit, all one piece. And then she has this dress on top of it, which has these velvet hearts that go all around. Really cute. And she has this adorable velvet bow on the chest. Now, it says in her chipboard or death certificate, I don't have it on hand, that Schizo, when he killed her, he made her into his image. So she has a similar face paint as Schizo. And the carving goes all the way up to her ear. So not a great end to this poor clown. She has these adorable clown shoes. They had a little lace detail painted on. And like I said, she is an adorable doll. She doesn't command a lot of money. I mean, she's certainly more money than Ezekiel and Tessa, but she is a very popular character. A lot of fans do love her, especially those who are into scary clown characters. And, you know, Cuddles definitely fits that character trope. And she goes for $150 to $165. I got her for $65 open. And that is Cuddles. So last but certainly not least is the MVD of Series 12, and that is Frozen Charlotte. Now, Frozen Charlotte is actually the first doll I owned from Series 12. And I had her for the longest time. I never had her other dolls because I was only into the cute dolls, and I honestly don't think I saw the other ones in the wild when I first bought her. So I paid retail for her, $26. So with Frozen Charlotte, she has a very interesting backstory. So her character name is based on a folk poem called A Corpse Going to a Ball, which was also known as Fair Charlotte. So the gist of it is Charlotte was this young woman who was going to a holiday party, and she didn't want to bundle up for fear of ruining or wrinkling her dress in her carriage ride. So when she arrived at the party, she was frozen to death. And that's how the story goes, and that was written in this poem. So the curious thing is her death date is completely different than the year the poem was published. The poem was published in December 28th, 1843, in a newspaper in Maine called The Rover, and it was written by Seba Smith, and it may or may not be based on a true story of something that actually happened. Now, the poem inspired, and this is really weird, it inspired dolls made of this character, and they were all made with porcelain or fine china as the material. So the doll, the Mezco doll, she actually looks like a porcelain doll, the way they painted her face. So here's up close of her face. Okay, she has this crack which looks like a crack in the ice, and she's blue because she's frozen to death. So she has the cracks on her side of her face. Now the porcelain dolls were more like figurines, and they did make full-size dolls. So here's a picture of what they looked like. And some versions of the Frozen Charlotte, the doll actually came in a coffin, which is a full circle moment for Living Dead dolls. The fact that you have a doll series that is known for their dolls coming in coffins, and that idea existed over 100 years prior. So it really is a full circle moment, almost meta, if you will, with this character. So with Frozen Charlotte, she also was part of the Series 7 minis that were never released. That included Rain, Morgana from Series 13, and Death from Series 15. Here's a picture, in case you forgot. But despite her not getting a mini, she did get a vinyl figurine when Living Dead Dolls did these blind box figurines. This one is from Series 2. It's 2 inches. She has a variant, which is all clear. Really cute. Highly recommend seeking the 2-inch vinyl figures. I did a short video of my collection of these figurines. I highly recommend watching it. Okay. And more on the doll herself. So her accessories are these earmuffs. Now, a lot of Frozen Charlottes, like if you buy her loose, tend to lose the mittens. So the mittens have been known to be missing. So definitely do your research and make sure she has the mittens. Sometimes the little furry adornments on her ice skates would be missing too. They'll just fall off. Okay, and she does have these blades on her skates, which also have been known to come off. And also, if you buy her sealed in coffin, there is a chance that the mittens will fall off within the coffin. So if it's sealed, just trust that they are there. Hopefully they are there. But she's a lovely doll, and like I said, she is the MVD of this series. She's very popular of Series 12. But her pricing has also fluctuated. She commands a high price. The last listing that she sold for was $285. So she starts at $200. And like I said, I paid $26 for her. Mint and Coffin in the wild. So, and like I said, I had her for many years before I bought any of these characters. And I'm so glad I completed Series 12. And, you know, she's a great doll. She does have an issue with the bangs. Like, her bangs are little to be desired. They're not as great as Chloe's. But, again, she's just a top-notch doll. Now, Series 12 is also one of the very few LDD series that every character has been resurrected. And yes, I own every resurrected doll of these characters. So that's it for Series 12. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. It's a great series. Some would say that this is probably the last great series of LDDs. I disagree. I do believe that as individual characters, I think they're the last series that has characters that are known outside their series, you know, because, again, they don't have a theme. And they also are very cohesive, even though they all have different dates in terms of when they died. They do look great together on the shelf. Very much like Series 11, which I forgot to mention. Even though they didn't have a theme either, they just looked very well together on the shelf. So, once again, do your research. Definitely make sure you look at those photos, especially for dolls like Ezekiel and Frozen Charlotte. Oh, and Tessa, make sure she has that knife. You know, she's supposed to have one. And thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you are part of the conversation of Living Dead Doll content. And as always, happy hunting.